This is Gene DeLisio with a featured sports interview from AM 1450 WDLB and Sports Radio 92.3 FM WOSQ. One of the key figures in the development of the Marshfield High School track and field program for many years was Irv Johnson, who came to Marshfield in 1953 to serve as the head track coach at Marshfield Junior High School. Irv never became the head coach of the varsity team, but still was a great influence on track and field in Marshfield for many, many years. We had the chance in April of 2017 to sit down with Irv and recapture some of the great moments in his long career as a track athlete, football player, and coach and educator in Marshfield.
I went to Mondovi High School, and I ran track, football, basketball, everything there, But, it was 1940. I graduated in 42, and in 41, that year, that my last year, they drafted our track coach. And so we didn't have track. So I didn't run track as a senior in high school. But then in the summertime, I went out to be a Boeing aircraft, worked in a defense plant. And I came back in the fall, played football at Eau Claire at the college. And when you had a wind sprints, I won them all, and I knew I could run, So I didn't really know how fast I really was until I got down to the Great Lakes, and I joined the Navy then in December of 42. I quit school and joined the Navy, and I got down to the Great Lakes in Chicago, and I ran on the Great Lakes. I ran track down there, indoors. It was in the wintertime. In a drill with sneakers and a wood floor. And they timed me in 9.9 in the 100 down there on the wood floor with those sneakers, with all blocks. And then I went to, from there I went over to Navy Pier. The Navy had a school there, and it goes way out into the lake. But they didn't, but we had a track team too. But we did not have a track. That track was outside, the pier, right? Just, I think it was Grant Park or something like that. There, quarter-mile track out of that, and that's where we worked out. But it wasn't big enough to have all the track meet, and so the Navy rented Stagg Field over there at the University of Chicago. And then that's where if we had a track meet, that's where we had it over there. And of course, we all had to invite the University of Chicago, And they used to be in the Big Ten in the old days. But they had a V12 program. It's like an officer's training thing. Wisconsin didn't have that, but Chicago did, Michigan did, and some of the other Big Ten schools. Anyway, so University of Chicago had some studs that could go, and so we generally ran against those guys, and then the other smaller schools, Wheaton College and some of the other teachers' college, then I was there in the winter, in the spring. Anyway, when school let out, all the colleges quit, and then we did too, And about the end of June or something like that, the coach, he caught me in the drill hall down there one day and said, "Hey, Irv, the National AAU meet is being held over here at Soldiers Field, August 14th or whatever it was." And he said, "We're going to put we're going to put our track team in there. And I want you to." So we had not really we had kind of laid off. We didn't have a lot of practice. So anyway, we went over. I ran the 100 or 220 over there. I got beat out in the semifinals over there. But I was also on the 880-yard relay team, and we got 5th in the national AAU meet. See, that was a time when the AAU and the NCAA were button heads. The AAU had signed up some schools, the NCAA had signed up some schools, and they tried to say, well, if you play as another school from the other organization, you can't do that, and that sort of thing. But eventually the NCAA won out, and but in those days the AAU was a formidable organization. I can remember we had to sign, you had to sign an affidavit saying you were a true amateur. You had not taken money for anything, stuff like that. So, yeah. So I went from there. I was in the Navy then, and as a gunner in a seaplane in the South Pacific for a year and a half. And I got out and went to college in Eau Claire and ran track up there then for 4 years and played football and basketball. Some of the guys, I had great roommates. I had Bob King, remember him? Well, he was a roommate with me for a year. Sam Young, the coach at Red River Falls, I roomed a year with him. Dick Emanuel, one of the great basketball players from up there, he and I roomed together for a year. So I had some real good roommates in college here, and enjoyed it very much. Yeah.
Any highlights from your college career that you can recall from football or track?
Well, I think the most enjoyable thing that I had was when I was a freshman. I was an unknown quantity, and we had a kid in school named Eugene McPhee, and his dad was on the faculty at the college. In fact, there's a building, the McPhee building up there, named after him. Well, Rod McPhee, he had gone to school at Eau Claire Memorial. That's when Eau Claire Memorial only had one high school, and they were tough. And he ran the 100, and he had, the previous year, he had gone down to Madison and he got second in the 100. And so, anyway, we always everybody figured, he's going to be the savior of the Eau Claire track team because he could really run. Okay. So, in fact, he even came down, this was 1946 in the fall. I was a freshman. We were practicing football, see? And I went in the wind sprints. And he comes down there, and he's kind of walking around, but he didn't come off of football. But he was out there, and someone asked him, hey, what are you doing down here, Rod? And he said, well, I'm down here to see who's got all the speed and who I may have to compete again next spring. And one of the guys, well, that's Johnson. He wins all the wind sprints, see? So anyway, they had an early meet, and we hadn't even had a time trial. But our coach, Bill Zorn, we all knew that McPhee was fast, because he had gotten second in a state meet the previous year. And so when we went to the first track meet down at Winona, the coach, they set to say, they seed you, you're number one, we'll put you in another year. So you don't wind up with all the good, fast guys in the trials and eliminate each other, see. So I got stuck into a time trial with some guys that could really go, and but I won my time trial, see. And then we got into the finals, and McPhee made it too, Well, we ran the finals, and I beat him. I didn't win the match, the meet, the 100, but I got second or whatever it was, but I beat McPhee. And he's our number one, So that's on a Saturday, and on Eau Claire, on Monday, Eau Claire, the campus was pretty small yet, and like I said, he was well known, kind of his dad and everything. And geez, everybody, did you hear that McPhee got beat? Yeah, and so anyway, Monday night, the coach says, we're going to have you guys run against, see who's the fast, who's going to be number one, who's going to be number two. We had another guy named Jim Zag, number 3, who would later on became a good track man. But anyway, so we had we each had a couple of false starts, and finally we got going. And I ran 109.8 that night. And that old beat up track at Eau Claire. And so, but nobody could believe it that they might beat him, but I did. He never ever beat me, and so yeah, I guess remember after the we had that time trial and I beat him. We continued to run around the track, kind of cool down, see, he and I. And at Eau Claire Memorial, they practiced on this college track too. That was their track, and we came by some of the kids that he had ran with last year, and we went by and they hollered at him, "Hey, Rod, you're not in high school anymore." But anyway, yeah, that was a memorable, and I can remember then a day or so later I was practicing down on the track, and here comes the football coach, Cliff Fagan. I don't know if you remember that name or not, but he was executive secretary for the WIAA. He left Eau Claire. He was only there 1 or 2 years, but I had played that. He had been football coach the previous one. I got hurt, so I didn't play much. But anyway, he came down to the track where I'm working out a little bit, and he says, "You're coming up for football again next fall, aren't you? This fall?" I said, "You bet." Good, because he came down to, so, yeah. Those were memories I really cherished, yeah.
Well, you got your first teaching job, I understand, at Durand and had some good experiences there. Tell us about being at Durand for a few years. Well,
it was a small school, but we had some good athletes, and it was a tough conference for it was Durand, Mondovi, Whitehall, Black River Falls, Galesville, Osseo, and it seemed like everybody had at least 1 or 2 real good players, and. So Mondovi had a guy named Jim Bollinger. He was quarterback in there. And Dave Howard, who played end on in Madison for the Badgers for a number of years. But we had the Halverson boys, and so we did. But Black River Falls, all this stuff with Sam Young. Sam Young was a hell of a coach, and we took our licks a little bit in football, basketball. Like I said, I started track, and that helped. And but one thing we always prevailed: golf. Our kids, I had these 2 Halverson boys, and anybody could touch them, I'll tell you. So, but I enjoyed it. 3 years down there, and yeah.
Now, back in that era, talking to coaches who coached back then, it was very common for a coach to coach all year long, coach 3 different sports and be there all year long. Was that something that you felt was a positive situation to be a coach throughout the year?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's a good point. being a coach in all the sports, being connected to all the sports. Like I was, even though you aren't the head coach in all the sports, you should be assistant coach, and that's what most of the schools did in those days. If you weren't the head coach, like I was head basketball coach, but I was also assistant football coach. See? And another school in our conference with all this stuff was Arcadia. That's where Paul Fagan is from. They had a coach over there. He was head coach and everything. He had track, football, and basketball. His name is Bill Cashin. He's in the Hall of Fame. He had teams, I'm telling you. Paul Fagan was one of them. You know, you won't believe, but I think you have to ask Paul about this. But I think he had a team one time that was unscored upon and unbeaten. Unscored upon. He had a number of unbeaten teams. In fact, I think the team that Paul played on was unbeaten. But to have a team that was unscored upon. He had kids that played their college football down in La Crosse. Willie Brzezinski for one. Well, when Willie left La Crosse, he got drafted by the Cleveland Browns. He played pro football, running back. Yeah, but they had good. But like I said, Bill was head coach in all different sports. In fact, we'd see him at the spring track meet. We always had our conference meet on the Eau Claire track, and go up and say, Bill, what kind of a football team are you going to have next fall? Well, I'm just not too sure yet, but it all depends on how my track team does here, So he had his finger on those athletes the whole year. He knew what they were doing. And I think when you're a head coach in all the sports, you can do that, or even as an assistant in some of the sports, as long as you stay with your kids. Yeah.
Tell us about the circumstances that brought you to Marshfield.
Well, I think I came here for $200, or it was money. Yeah. In fact, when I came, I had a lot of. I was head basketball coach at a high school, and a lot of people were saying, "Hey, Irv, you are lowering yourself. You're going to a junior high school," but I had to take that into consideration too, and. But I had a chance to make more money down here. The bigger school had a salary schedule, all the benefits and stuff like that. And in Durand, they didn't have that. And if you went in there, you had to fight with the superintendent of schools and tell him how valuable you were, and he should give you more money. Sometimes it worked, and sometimes it didn't.
So you came to Marshfield, and what was the state of some of the programs like track when you first got here?
Well, they really, like I said, track was at a humble stage, using homemade equipment, had some outstanding kids who never really had a chance to show what they could do, like Jerry Witt, for instance, and because we didn't have a program. But we had good coaches. We had Bob Lew, and Bob, he had wrestling. We had Arlen Hazley. He was a good wrestler, and he was down there. He was runner-up, but he should have been a champion. But anyway, we had when Lou was here, I think we probably had one of the better wrestling programs in the conference. Yeah.
You've mentioned a couple of times how you felt track and field was the type of program that really helped build the other programs in the school. Tell us why you felt that way.
Pardon?
Why did you feel that track and field was so important in building up the other programs? Well,
the running especially. sprinting. And I can remember one spring, we had a track meet out here. And, geez, we had a bunch of kids that were really out for track. Arlen Hazley, all those kids, some of the wrestlers and football players and everything, And I can remember somebody and we weren't exactly the big football power, but we were doing. But I can remember somebody saw all our big guys, and they looked great. And someone made a statement that says, geez, they must have one hell of a football team with all those studs they got out there, And but the running and that helped your program, no doubt about it. Yeah, I go back to the Bill Cashin at Arcadia days. Like he said, it all depends. If I'll have a good football team, it all depends. My football team will depend how my track team does. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, you get here in the early 1950s, and there's not much for track and field, and people like yourself and Lee Groutman really began getting the program back together. Tell us about some steps that you took with Lee's help to resurrect track in Marshfield.
Well, I brought my kids out there to senior high school, like Gene Dix and those kids, and got them a chance to work with the kids that Lee was working with, see. And they actually taught my kids more probably about track than I did. I could handle the sprints and the running and stuff like that, but I didn't know much about pole vaulting or anything like that, But the kids that Lee had working with, they kind of worked right in with him, and the long jump, getting the steps in, your right steps, and same way the pole vault, stuff like that. Get your steps so that when you hit the box, you're in those days, pole vaulting was pole vaulting. Mm-hmm. We had a bamboo pole. I remember we had two poles, a bamboo and an aluminum. Mm-hmm. And neither one had any give, really. Mm-hmm. And when you put that pole down, you had to go up and do a handstand at the top over the bar and turn and chuck the pole away and then make your fall. Mm-hmm. And now it's whip. Mm-hmm. Speed and grab the pole, and the pole will whip you over, And it's no longer a pole vault anymore. It's a whipping contest. Yeah.
Well, you were mentioning earlier what the facilities were like for track when you first got here. Can you talk about that once again, and how you guys went out to improve the facilities at Marshfield?
Well, like I said, we had that straightaway down alongside the sidewalk on Palmetto. That was where we had the hurdles, and we practiced the hundreds and stuff like that. But it so happened we had some townspeople who had kids in school, like one of them was named Jay Wallenstrom, and then we had Doc Fleming, and we had Doc Mason, and there was another guy named George Manthai. Well, these people had kids in school, all for athletics, and very interested. And Wallenstrom was an executive with Rodas Plywood. So Lee got the idea, got the movement going to build that track up, make the oval. Took a lot of dirt hauling. And Wallenstrom and those guys, they were, he went and with Rodas, over the Rodas Plywood, and got all the planking. You got to plank so that when you put the cinders down, so they don't, move away. So all the way around that quarter-mile track, we had the planks built into the ground to hold the track up, see? And that all came from Rogers Plywood, because on account of Jay Wallenstrom. And he'd been quite an athlete himself. He had played with the Phillips Oilers one time, and when he got out of college, that was almost like a pro team, basketball team. And so we had him, and yeah.
You were mentioning earlier what Lee Groutman meant to the start of the track program. Tell us about Lee and your reflections about him and what he meant for track in Marshfield. Well,
like I said, he was a grad of lacrosse. He went to Hortonville High School, and he played football, basketball, ran the track down there, and he was proficient in a lot of different things. He could do a little high jumping and a little pole vaulting and hit a few hurdles and stuff like that. Could teach kids how to get the steps in, so get the right steps between the hurdles and stuff like that. And he was just what kids needed when you start a program, like that. Yeah. And like I said, he left here. He went out to California, and they ran into John Madden and Tark the Shark Tarkanian, But Lee held his own. Yeah.
You also talked about Al Bitzer and some of the things he did for the track program. Tell us about what Al did for you.
Yeah, Al, he made the hurdles, and I don't know to this day whether they were highs or lows or both. He made standards like a tripod. And so they could put a bamboo pole across and high jump over, or pole vault. And but Al Bitzer was a tremendous woodworker. Probably, I would say probably one of the best woodworking teachers in the state of Wisconsin, really. Yeah.
This is a bit before your time, but you were talking earlier a little bit about Jerry Witt and the championships he won. He won a couple of state championships for Marshfield back in the early 50s, a few years before you got here. But can you recount again the story about Jerry Witt and how he got down to Madison to run in the state meet, even though Marshfield really had no track back then?
Well, everybody knew he could run, and that he was fast. But we had no program, no track coach. Rapids had a good program, always did. Point had a good program. But I think it was Torresani down there at the Rapids. I think he was the head coach then. And the story is, someone told me that because Jerry didn't know how to start, that they took him down there and they showed him how to get in the starting blocks and how to get out of them, and that helped him when he went on to win all these state championships. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jerry, like I said, we didn't have a program, but everybody knew the potential, and so that's what we did. Yeah.
And a couple of years after you got here, you did win a state championship at Marshfield with Richard Dix at the hurdles. Tell us about Richard and his state championship.
Well, Dix, he is a product of those homemade hurdles down the straightaway along Palmetto. And I don't think we at the time knew that he was as good as he was. We knew he had a good time and everything, but his times on that track that we had were very misleading, because he had never really been timed on a good track, And I don't know how he must have done well in the conference, but I don't remember how he did anymore. But I know that he won the sectional, and we took him down to Madison, and I drove him down. I and Groutman, and And that was a great day. I tell you, it was a great day for the Marshfield track program. All you need is somebody to be successful in your program. The kids will flock to it. An example is football. When Lutke was here, when Lutke had those championship football teams, he had over 100 kids out. And I remember when we had a hard time getting 22 because we didn't have an outstanding program yet. But it's the same way with track. And that's the same, and that's what right now. That is what Aiken is enjoying. They're having success, and his kids see that, and they want to be a part of it. And so they're out. Yeah.
And a couple of years after Richard Dix won his championship, I want to ask about this medley relay team, because I don't know too much about that, but I have a note here. In 1957, Marshfield won the state championship in the medley relay. Can you tell us a little bit about that, if you recall that?
I don't even remember it. I couldn't relate it. I know they were state champs, but I don't. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go on to Gene Dix and his championships in 59 and 60. Tell us about Gene and what kind of a runner he was.
Gene was fast. He was fast. I don't know just how fast he could maybe run the 100, but I'm sure it was. I would say you could maybe a 10-500 runner, and when you're a low hurdler, especially, to be a winner, you got to be fast, because it's mostly speed, yeah, and and you don't need a lot of finesse. But when you get to the highs, of course, now you got to have more finesse to go with your running ability. But Gene could run, and that's why he won those low hurdles. But he also had the form and everything for the highs. And yeah, but like I said, he was just a tremendous athlete. He could do everything. Throw the pole at him. He knew how to pole vault. High jump. Go ahead. And yeah, tremendous. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you saw some other great athletes. We were talking earlier about Neil Fleming, and a guy who's known for football, perhaps not so much about track, but tell us about Neil and what his track abilities were like.
Well, Neil was primarily, I think probably he may have put the shot too a little bit, but primarily Neil was a sprinter, and we didn't realize how fast he was. I knew he could run, but I never thought, nobody thought he was a 900 man, but we had all those clocks still, and they didn't lie, and so, but he was, I think he probably in that relay, you always want to use somebody, your dash man in those relays. And at that time we had 80-yard relays. Everybody ran 220. And now they have all kinds of relay, medley relay, everything. Yeah. Yeah.
Any other athletes you can recall from that era that really stood out to you?
What was that?
Any other track men or that you recall from that era that really stood out in your mind?
Well, I had Hazley and the Dixes. No, I can't remember. But yeah.
You were at the junior high all these years. Tell us, if you would, about your relationship with the high school coaches and how you helped them and helped build the high school program from the junior high.
Well, at the time I came here, The junior high was almost a separate school. I mean, they wanted to be, it seemed like they wanted to be a school all by themselves, not part of it. See, it was 7th, 8th, and 9th grades. And at the end of the school year, the letter winners were given a P, and our colors were purple and gold. Different colors, even. And this P, well, when I came here, Lou and Graupman were the same time we did it, and they realized, hey, this is not. That's one of the things that's hurting our program. See what a lot of kids did. Our good athletes, they won their P for Purdy. They felt that they had achieved their athletic success. They never went out for anything at senior high school anymore. They didn't go out for football again. They had already won their P. And so we decided, hey, listen, we got to do away with that. We're going to have changed the school colors down there. We're going to, instead of giving that P, we're going to give them a numeral corresponding to their graduating year. That's going to be their, like, you know, other schools do the same thing. So we did that then. Plus, we decided we're going to do more practicing together. And that was easy because kind of a track, you know, we all had to use the same track. But then I brought the football team down, and we worked out on the same field then too with them in football. See, and basketball, we had exchange back and forth. See, senior high school played all their games in the Purdy gym, and so about a couple nights a week they'd come up and practice in my gym, and I'd have to go out this. We'd go out to senior high, or you know, the middle school, and play and practice in their gym. See, and so yeah, and well, that I don't know if you ever caught. You weren't here when they played those games at in a Purdy. Well, that was really something. That balcony up there, all the way around, you know. I would say that Purdy gym, when you played in there, it was maybe almost 8 to 10 point advantage playing it on your home gym, because with that balcony overhanging, where you had to take the ball out of bounds on one end in particular, you were under the balcony. And so if you were behind in this game, and you put a full court press on, you went up and you pressed this guy underneath, and he's got to try to take that ball out of this balcony. And that balcony wasn't much higher. I mean, he couldn't throw a baseball pass. You didn't have to worry about a long pass. You just could come up and press, and he knew he had to get that ball in short passes, see. Mm-hmm. And so when you warmed up, you always told your center, you know, when you jump ball, start the game. Now remember, we're going to face, we want to jump ball, so that when we get into the fourth quarter, we are attacking the basket down there where that overhang is. And if we make a basket, the other team's got to take the ball from out of bounds from underneath that balcony. Mm-hmm. And so you all told your center, hey, don't forget, you know. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then the kids, I'll tell you, they sat in the balcony, and they had their feet hanging over the backboard, something, or resting up there. You know, you look up there. Oh, it stamped their feet. Oh man, I tell you, I thought sometimes the plaster was going to fall right on the floor. You know, it was really something. Yeah.
Can you tell also, you mentioned Lee Groutman and some other guys, but how about talking about some of the other track coaches you worked with from the high school over the years?
I worked with, I just can't remember, he came here from Medford, and he was a good trackman. I can't even think of his name now. But Bjorkman, Jim Sherburne, there's a good trackman, good coach. He can, when he was helping us coach down there, he could still do the hurdles. He was a beautiful hurdler, yeah. And but he was a good coach, and he's still helping Dan. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You were here long enough, of course, also to see Tom Braden and his state championship. Tell us about Tom and the work he did for the Tiger Track program.
Well, he was a good runner, and the kids, he's the type of a kid that other kids liked, and wanted to be around him. And we didn't have any problem with, breaking training rules or anything like that, and because he was a good kid. And so a leader, that's what he was, a leader, yeah.
When he won that state championship, it had been about 15, 16 years since the previous championships, and Marshfield did not have one after Tom until the early 2000s. But what did that championship mean to people in Marshfield to see Braden do that well?
Well, Braden surprised me that day when he won that, and we never really had the outstanding performer. It seemed like there for a number of years, state champion caliber. And so, hey, when he won that championship down there in Madison, man, that perked your program up again. And his parents, I don't know if you know, Al, his dad, but they're great people too. But he was just great for the program. We needed that at that time. We needed a championship. Yeah. Sometimes that's how you got us as your program goes along. Somewhere along the line, you got to be successful to make it keep it going. To kind of rejuvenate it. And that's what he came along at the right time. Yeah.
We talked a lot about track and field here. Just as curiosity, what about your relationship with the cross-country program over the years and how you may have helped them from the junior high?
Well, we didn't really have any cross-country when I first came here, and didn't have it. I don't know what year they started that, but there are kids that like to run, and they're not really fast, but they could run a long time. Mm-hmm. And this was just what they needed, and it was made for them to go out and run. Yeah.
I want to ask also about, I know you've kept tabs on the Tiger Track program, Dan Aiken and the people who've been running the girls and boys programs over the years. Tell us about your relationship with them and the job you think Marshfield's doing in track and field today.
Repeat that again, will you?
I know you followed Dan Aiken and the Tiger track coaches over the years, in recent years. Tell us your feelings about what they've done for track and field in Marshfield here in recent years.
Well, he's got numbers. He's had success. Mm-hmm. He had that. What was that kid's name? Depot. Oh, he was good. See, and that's another one. That's another time. He came along the right time again. And but Dan has got numbers A lot of kids come out, and you get a lot of people involved. Somebody is going to be in that group. It's going to be outstanding, and when you get a whole bunch of them like Dan's got, I don't know, 60, 70 kids out right now. Somewhere in there's a gym. Might be more, and but they'll run, and they run past my house. I see them, and they do a lot of running, and Dan, he used to get out and run with those kids, and Sherburne too, I see him go by, yeah.
Well, Irv, before we close things out, any other final thoughts you have about your track program, your teaching career here at Marshfield?
Well, I think we got the facility right now. It is too darn bad. They let that track deteriorate. That surface on it needs to be replaced. It should be. We can't even hold a track meet there anymore, and there were times when I was coaching and everything that we had a lot of track meets out there. We had a nice facility and a good track, but now they kind of let it go downhill a little bit there, and you can't do that. It's like a roof on your house. You can't let it. If it needs replacing, you got to get up and do it. Get it replaced. Otherwise, it's going to deteriorate everything. And the same way with that track, that surface. We can't hold a track meet there anymore, and because we can't, I'm surprised we have all the numbers we do. Because parents and kids like to have parents come and watch them run. And if you can't have a track meet where your parents can come and watch you because your track isn't good enough anymore, hey, you're just doggone lucky you got anybody out. And to get that track fixed up and get so we can hold some meets, hey, and you'll see hundreds and hundreds of spectators out there watching their kids, and there's nothing more fun to watch than a track meet. It's like watching a three-ring circus. Everything's going on. And really great, really good.
There has been talk about building a new facility somewhere, which would include a track. What would you think a facility with an outdoor track here would mean to Marshfield and the Marshfield track?
Well, I think would really enhance our program. Anytime you can have your facility right next to your building, whereas they got to come all the way across town, and practice on the track, existing track, and it doesn't do anything for your program really, and when I was in college, I always remember Mankato, Minnesota. We had a track meet over there, and God, I never saw a facility like that, before. You step right out of the locker rooms, and there's the track, just like the middle school in relationship to the existing track. And man, oh man, and did they ever have the athletes? Man, God. No, I think if they have a track out there right in their own backyard, it'd be wonderful. Yeah.
One final thought I want to ask about, I just thought about this. When the field house was built with an indoor track, and you began running some indoor meets in the field house, what did that do for the program?
Well, that did a lot for the program. I kept those, there's nothing greater than that indoor track. Keeps your kids running all year long, really. And I was surprised how that they had a nice track as they did, how they set that up. And I used to run out there, jog in the morning, and it's a nice track. Anytime you can have a facility like that, it'll do wonders for your program.
Longtime Marshfield track coach Irv Johnson. By the way, that interview was recorded in April of 2017 when Irv was at the age of 93 years old. This is Gene DeLisio reporting for AM 1450 WDLB and Sports Radio 92.3 FM WOSQ.